third edition of Civil Beat Ideas Live, our new weekly talk show in which we talk with people around the islands on all kinds of different subjects. And our show today is the last show of 2020. And as we all know, 2020 has been a challenging year. So we really wanted to end the year with a show that would be deeply affirming and deeply hopeful. And so we chose to base today's show off an essay that Kirsten Whatley wrote for us at Civil Beat in the Ideas section. Her essay was entitled, "What if we trained Hawaii's youth to be the caretakers of their communities?" And you can find that on our website. It ran on October 18th. And we're very happy to have Kirsten here with us today, along with her husband, Rick Rutiz, and Lipoa Kahaleuahi. And all of them are here joining us from the east side of Maui. Beautiful, the beautiful, beautiful east side of Haleakala. And we're very grateful to have you here with us today. And we're going to be talking about a program that all three of them have been deeply involved in, Makahana Ka'ike, in Working One Learns. And so I'm going to let them do most of the talking today so they can tell us these very hopeful, very inspiring stories coming out of Hana and Kipahulu and Kaupo. And so I'd love it if you would each begin by just telling us a little bit about yourselves and how you came to be involved with Makahana Ka'ike. And Lipoa, would you start for us, please?
Sure. Aloha kako. My name is Lipoa Kahaleuahi. I was initially a student of Makahana Ka'ike. I was interested in art throughout high school. And so Rick Rutiz, and his program, their building program at that time. So many of my classmates did a lot of buildings around campus and throughout our community. And through my art class, I did a couple murals and art related projects. And so that's how I was involved. Of course, we're a small, tight-knit community as well. And so I knew Rick and his children, whether in hula or out in the water surfing. And so, we grew up and did community things together. And then I went away and had about 10 years of life outside of Hana. And when I returned, every time that I returned, I would always see Rick out in the water and we'd talk story and catch up. And this last time I was thinking about staying, and that's when he kind of tempted me with, a way to get back into my community, I think in a special way, through Makahana Ka'ike. And so that's kind of a shortened version of how I found myself back involved in the programs, which had evolved over time since I had been involved as a student, and then be able to continue to grow my position and be here today as the executive director.
Okay, mahalo for that. Rick, do you want to tell us a little bit about the beginnings of Makahana Ka'ike?
We only have 45 minutes, don't we?
I know.
Back when
30 seconds or less, please.
Still in diapers, and my kids were in high school, and I was a building contractor, and I saw these Hana kids. I also taught a little bit at school, and I saw these kids who were absolutely awesome. They were artists, musicians. They could play sports. They would surf. They were just stand-up people. Yet in the classroom, a lot of them struggled big time. The lights just turned off. They gave up. They got behind in second grade and never caught up. And I would hire these kids on my building crews, and they blew everyone else away in the community. They were very, very talented, very quick learners. You taught them once, twice, and they got everything right. So I would compare that to how I saw them in school, and started dreaming about what if in a school setting they had a chance to do the things that they could excel in. And those things, for example, math, no, I don't get math, I don't do it, I don't understand anything. And then they get up on the roof, and how many square feet of roofing do we need? Measure this way and measure this way. Oh, that's multiplication. So it just clicked in so many ways how hands-on learning could be a breakthrough for a lot of the kids. And that was before they even thought of helping the community things. Once we got started, we were first only building at school, but then an opportunity, a need came, and we had a chance to go out into the community and do a build. And I just stood back and watched magic happen, how these kids, if they got a chance to be a part of their community instead of the mess ups in the principal's office, if they got a chance to show the community what they could do, the community would therefore, Uncle, Auntie, Kupuna, would see them in a totally different light, and then they would live that light. They would live this new person, how other people could show them once they realized that one person could make a difference, that they were needed. They weren't just, problems. So this was kind of for me. And as the nonprofit grew and Makahana, year after year after passed, people would ask, what's the 5-year plan? What's a 15-year plan? And my answer was, I don't know what's happening next week. We go with the community, we go with the kids. Whatever is needed, we want to be there for that. And my board, of course, was all over us, supporting us. So that's what that was the beginning of the nonprofit, and it went zigzag every single direction we could go in, and some things worked, some things didn't work.
Okay, can I just ask you a quick question? When you talk about the kids, what ages are we talking about here?
Some as early as, depending on their maturity, but we had no hard and fast rules. Sometimes 13, 14-year-olds would get in it. And then we also, but that was the hardcore group who would build every day. We'd often do programs for even younger kids. We once did an awesome skateboard project where 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds were helped to make their own skateboards, but they did it themselves. And that was magical in that sense. And these kids, if they were an 8-year-old, 6 years later, they were just gnawing at the bit to get into the program and to do like their role models that they see. And our, again, 15, 16, 17, 18, and then our young apprentices, they are definitely role models in Hana. They have taken that position, they live it, they, hold their head up high and are looked at in very good eyes by the whole community. Our whole community is so unbelievable supportive of us. There's no politics, there's no everyone's just there for the organization and the kids.
That's great. That's great. Okay, Kirsten, we've come to you. Can you share with us how you became involved?
I came to Makahana Ka'ike as a writer. Rick had just started the program a few months before. This was about 20 years ago. And he had been going for several months, and he needed a grant writer. And he was looking for someone to help put his thoughts and dreams down on paper. And he was describing to me all of his visions, and he was so impassioned about it all that I quickly joined in on the work and became the grant writer, administrator, communications person, and his wife.
Well, that just goes to show how good and effective this program has been at building things, building good things. Lipoa, can you tell us a little bit about what what the program consists of today, because I think now it has 3 different major components, right? Can you share with the viewers what those are?
Sure. So our first and foundational program was our building and construction program that Rick championed. And then about 10 years later, another program, community farm, was created called Mahele Farm down in partnership with the Natural Tropical Botanical Garden, or the garden here in Hana is called Kahanu Garden. So many people may know Pi'ilani Haleheyao and the Ulu Grove there at Kahanu Garden. And so it was a collaboration between our nonprofit and their efforts. And it exists as a community farm where members of our community can come down, work a little bit, learn a little bit, share a little bit, and be able to take home the produce that was harvested and that is going off at that time. Then about 5 years ago, we incorporated our third core program called Mala Mahaloa. And this program is all around haloa, or the kalo plant. And so that program encompasses the practice of revitalizing ku'i, which is pounding kalo into pa'i'ai or poi, making all of the implements that go along with it, the boards and stones, as well as we've partnered with a family in Wailua Nui, the Went Ohana, to revitalize lo'i and restore lo'i in that area. And so this kind of, creates this circular effect to being able to grow and harvest our own kalo and be able to bring that right back into our community to then distribute. And so, but utilizing the same, kind of philosophies and themes that Rick described in working with youth apprentices in agriculture and cultural practice and building, as well as, teaching the younger students in smaller lessons about their connection with Aina and culture. And so on one hand, being able to provide paid apprenticeships that allow students to, be able to have hands-on learning and training and skills and, their first job. And also that educational piece in classrooms, both in and outside of the classroom with teachers.
Okay. I want to just, for our viewers, we're live at the moment. So if any of our viewers have any questions for any of for Rick, for Kirsten, for Lipoa, please send those in. Any comments that you want to share with us, please send those in and we will see them and we will get to them. One of the things, I wonder, could we talk a little bit about the numbers just to help the viewers understand the kind of the scale, the scope of this? So for example, with the building component, do you have any kind of a rough idea of how many buildings are we talking about since you started, Rick? How can you give us a sense of how many young people have come through this? How many buildings have been, whether they're, and maybe you can specify whether it's a kind of a remodel or a fix up, or whether it's actually building it from the ground up?
Kirsten, you can help me a little bit. Probably Lipoa can help me. But at school, we've probably been involved in 20 or more either buildings from ground up, many of them fairly large with a lot of solar on them and other things, a lot of art in them, stained glass, mosaic tile. Then out in the community, we've been involved in between little tiny cottages for our kupuna and bathhouses for larger families with solar, and also one of the more frequent ones is handicapped access ramps for any kupuna who are injured or for any reason cannot navigate the 2, 3, 4, 5 steps up into their house. So we put in ramps. If you combine all those, we're probably up in the 150 or so within our community. of projects, and everyone's different. There's no stock blueprint or anything. Usually the kids help design it, and especially the artistic part of it. But it's very much okay. We're here now. What do we do next? What do you want to do next? It's not so much in learning to read plans and build it. It's thinking and communicating with whoever you're building it for on their needs and solving their needs. So that, I know I'm rambling, that gives us an idea of how many projects. We just go from one to another to another to another.
Definitely. And so then as part of that, if it's really doing whatever is needed to be done, what are the skills? Like, do the kids learn plumbing? Do they learn carpentry? Do they, what do you find that they come away from this experience really understanding or knowing how to do?
What I'd like to think, what I'd like to think is happening is, one, they're thinking just on that it's not thrown in front of them, and we try not to discriminate between the 14-year-old being the gopher and the 18-year-old being the foreman or journeyman. Everyone does everything, and everyone's voice is heard, which is really important. At the end of most days, we want to hear what the kids are thinking and their ideas. And then if you go a little further, more important than, yes, there's design, there's cement work, there's foundation, there's hammer and nails, there's building, there's solar, there's electric. We bring in professionals to help us. I'm a carpenter, I'm a finish carpenter, but for doing other parts of it, we bring in professionals to teach and mentor the kids. So a kid can come out of there with a lot of general building knowledge that they wouldn't get in a traditional way, at least that early, because in our traditional ways, they start out as gophers, laborers, digging holes, things like that. And we try to, go the whole gamut. The other thing that I think is maybe even more important that the skills they come out with is believing in themselves. And when they get a chance to be part of that solution and part of the talk on how something is done, then all of a sudden they're not stupid anymore, like they've been maybe told for the last years and years and years. And they have value. And then all of a sudden the community, every time they walk into Hasegawa's, you have two or three uncles and aunties patting them on the back and malamading or taking care of auntie or uncle. So they believe that, and they get to see the value of what one person, I know I said that before, but what one person can do to change a community, to enrich a community. And to me, that's even more important than the hard skills that they might learn, because they can take those skills and they can be, you know, they can take them anywhere and do any job with these skills, with those self-confidence and knowing that they can make a difference. So to me, that's really important that they get a taste of that.
Right. Well, I know that our topic for today was how do we empower Hawaii's next generation? So it sounds like what you're saying is a key component of that is that young people have to feel that they're esteemed and valued by their communities.
Absolutely. And some people used to categorize us as an at-risk person, and it did help get funding because that's a magic word. But really, we also had people like Lipoa, who's on the genius level, and who came in and did hands-on work. And I think that for them also, I listened to Obama, the this morning talk about something, leadership conferences he was doing. And I think that's really awesome and great. But there's also a leadership and a self-confidence you get when you're, hands-on building something for Auntie, who you're changing her life right now, today. And you get to stand back at the end of 3 hours work and look at the roof you put on, or the walls you built, or the, whatever it may be. That they're both good. It's good to talk story and to do all that, but there's also a magic about using your hands to make change.
And also in this daily real life leadership camp, it's not just the tangible outcome that you get, but it's the emotional experience that you have being in the community, working with others, making that change.
Teamwork too. There's, we're like a club. Our guys hang together, and they're very elite. I mean, I hate that word, but they're very elite status in the community of who they are. And they could be down at the bay drinking and, getting high, but they could also be working at auntie or uncle's house doing something, getting just as high.
Mm-hmm. In a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure which of you this is the best question for, but I wanted to, that covers the building component, the housing component, but I'd also love to know, going back to that idea of just getting a sense of the figures, the number of people involved, and maybe we could talk a little bit about Mahele Farm. And it would be great to tell the viewers a little bit about like how many people are working there and what's growing there, and how many, if you even know, how many pounds are harvested each month, and where does that food go, so that we can get a sense of that component. And then just before whoever is going to take that question jumps in, I just want to remind our viewers that if you have any questions out there that you want to send to us, we're happy to take them. So Lipoa, do you want to take the garden question?
I'd like Lipoa to do that, but okay. I also have one very quick story which blew me away, because I don't know how to grow, a tomato. That's not who I am. But when I heard a little 6-7-year-old say I heard the story from the mother that his kid came home, and they were in the store, and she offered him some candy, and I don't know if it was she said, no, I want those green beans, because we grew them at Mahele and they taste so much better than the candy, and that's what I want to eat. And to me, that was just earth-changing, earth-shaking. Go ahead, Lipoa.
No, that's perfect. Because I think that's definitely the stories that bring to life what Mahele Farm and our efforts on campus have done through the program. But for the viewers, Mahele Farm is 10 acres. About 6 acres of that is, readily being in cultivation. And one of the initial premises of the farm was to reintegrate these Hawaiian traditional crops and native Hawaiian varieties into our diets. So Kahanu Garden, which is the neighboring property and from whom Mahele Farm has acquired its lease for the 10 acres, is largely a seed bank of all of these types of varieties of banana, kalo, sweet potato, ulu, and for us, even though we're here and we may be able to go outside and harvest the ulu or the banana, we're usually harvesting an apple banana or an ice cream banana, bananas that have been introduced to us. However, we have all of these types of varieties that are specific to Hawaii, sometimes even so specific to our ahupua'a or our area. And so that was one of the ideas, was reintegrate these types of native varieties into our diets. But of course now, there was, this whole passion of vegetables and other fruits. And so there's tons of different exotic and domestic plants that are now growing on that 6-acre piece. It was also a Jim neighbor's macnut farm before. And so there are macnut trees on the property. And so we roughly harvest about, upwards and beyond 25,000 pounds of produce from there and distribute that directly into our community. There are 4 workers that. Yeah.
Is that every month, that 25,000 pounds?
That's every year, sorry.
Every year, okay.
It will fluctuate during every month, depending on what's being harvested. But roughly 2,000, between 2,000 and 2,500 pounds of produce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, and then about the workers.
Yeah, so we have 4 workers that are there at the farm, just ensuring, everything gets taken care of. And then a lot of our effort comes from a core volunteer base. So, we did get some impact from COVID-19, and being able to, have readily available volunteers and be able to have that type of involvement. But we have a core, roughly 20 or so volunteers that, are dedicated to their work. And it's, we've improved our methods too. I mean, our farm manager is very creative, Mikala Min, and in order to kind of retain, a core volunteer base, he's found their strengths, and whether it's, carpentry or rock wall building. We have a kupuna who's a famous rock wall builder who is helping us to do our sign for the farm. And so those types of purposeful projects that hone in on, anyone's strengths is one of the ways that has, ensured kind of involvement and interest in the farm. If, you're not interested in always pulling weeds and doing that kind of stuff. And with our Mahalo program, we've just harvested successfully a little over 10,000 pounds of kalo so far this year, which was a goal of ours for a long time. But we're so happy to be able to successfully get to that benchmark. And we've only experienced the increase of desire for kalo, not only throughout our community, but I think throughout the entire state. We, in the past, to just get our program started, we did, buy kalo from other islands, which is difficult, especially when you want to try to get organic kalo. But the dream was always to try to grow our own. And so we've gotten to that point, largely to be able to do that and to be able to distribute that, whether through cooked kalo or in the form of pa'iai or poi into our community. So it's quite a benchmark, and yeah.
Yeah. Is it dryland kalo or wetland kalo, or how do you do you have lo'i as part of the farm?
Yes, so it's actually through another collaboration in the area of Wailua Nui, about halfway between Hana and the other side, or Kahaleuahi. And we have about 25 lo'i that we are helping to steward with a family, with the Went Ohana out there. And so through a partnership that was struck a few years ago, we had kind of this labor force, and there was this need after a long time water fight in that area, with competing for water with Central Maui and diversion of it to that area. Ke'anai and Wailua Nui had kind of won a victory there, and water was returned. But there, a lot of the families that used to farm kalo had kind of moved on. The younger generations had moved on to find other work. And so there was need for a labor force. And so fortunately, the kind of timelines of the two, were perfect. And so we were able to, our Mahalo program, and Viliami Tukuafu, who was the lead of that, was able to kind of start a program to revitalize those lo'i. And so primarily, our kalo comes from there, but with our close partnership with the school, we've grown more and more kalo here on campus, actually. And so some of it comes from right here.
Oh, okay. So to bring the kind of the personalities, the feeling of the kids a little more alive for the viewers, can you talk a little bit about, I know Rick, you were saying that you really watch them flourish when they feel valued, but what is it that you find that they really love the most, that they really like doing the most? When you think of a participant in Makahana Ka'ike, like who comes to mind? What do you see and what are they doing?
Well, what comes to mind is just to feel needed, I guess I look at, 200 years ago when, 300 years ago, when a 16, 17-year-old with arms this big and strong backs, they were a key part of the community and, helping the community be strong and flourishing. And now, if you look at, for whatever reason, our school system, you see 15, 16, 17-year-olds as problems and disenfranchised, and therefore striking out against everyone that's around them because everyone thinks that they're pilau and they're no good. And when that changes, when these kids feel that they are needed and valued, um, they change and they accept that position and they can live that position and they can make everyday decisions on, as I said a little earlier, they have a chance to go down to the bay and smoke a few and drink some beer, or they can go help Tutu with her house, and which one is the bigger high. I've said that before, but just that whole feeling good about themselves is so important. And with that, they can take that anywhere, and they do. They can take it for the rest of their lives. Um, ride that wave.
I think we have a lot of example like stories too. I mean, I just think about the last couple of days, our building crew has been out of service, helping a family in Kahiki Nui complete a build there. And if you know where Hana is and you know where Kahiki Nui is, you'll know that's roughly an hour drive away from each other along another windy narrow road. And so in order to dedicate their time for that project, they needed help to cover their classes for those 2 days. And so, I mean, myself and a couple of our other staff, just jumped in and just of course prepped with the crew, just to know what to expect. And so we helped out, and one of the people that we called upon to help was one of our senior students, who is fortunately also working with us during the school day with his extra credit work study class. And so, I unfortunately didn't directly take the building class when I was in high school, but I can help, and I can help to just guide and watch, but other than that, it really, I'm following the lead of one of our brightest, seniors to be able to, really step in when the students have questions, when they're, just needing some help. And that's, just a smaller, more recent example of, that those are the types of students that we're hoping to empower, and I'm not sure, I hope he saw what I saw or realized what I realized when I saw him, jumping in there, but, and, or even helping me, it's, you are the expert in this field, you are the mentor now, and so it's that shift that, and those types of examples of that shift that we hope to create, for students as they, move on, with us and in life, to constantly experience those shifts.
That sounds
Just
so
adding,
powerful.
so on our side at Kahiki Nui, this was it was called a 3-day house for a family who had a homestead there. That's Hawaiian homestead area. And when we showed up, people started, the neighborhood heard what was going on and came by and brought food and drink, and people would jump in for what they could. And the talk, first of all, a 3-day house, what's that? And then as the first day ended and the second day ended, and everyone was, whoa, there's a 3-day house going on. And people started seeing what could happen, what might be able to happen if they, if this became a routine, if barn raising, if helping each other became the norm. And it was really magic to see all these people just so excited that this was happening in their neighborhood. Another, I'm going to talk and talk, but another quick story was several years ago, one of our own Hana graduates got in a tragic accident over the summer after he graduated. And some months later, the hospital wanted to release him, but they wouldn't release him because his family home in Kula Homestead, Hawaiian Homestead, had like 8 steps going up to their house, and he couldn't deal with that. He was in a wheelchair. They didn't want him carried up the steps all the time. So the family asked if we would come in and do a ramp for them. And it was Thanksgiving time. So we helped plan it. I got some help on the other side for the foundation. And then we took a school bus of 20 kids or so over there the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We left Hana, I think before 5 in the morning. We arrived there just at the crack of dawn. The kids walked out of the bus without a word and just set up and started working. The leaders with 3 people under them, the 3 people under them would mentor the 3 under them. And everyone just got into this crazy flow of, with no real hierarchy, no boss. I just was walking around with my camera. That was all I was really doing. And this thing just came out of the ground. And at lunchtime, the people who we were building for said, okay, lunchtime. And everyone said, okay, take shifts, let's eat for 5 minutes and get back to work. And no one broke, no one did it, anything, which youth, it's hard to get them back to work. This never happened. And as it got dark out, we were putting on the second coat of paint on the whole thing. It was done, ready to go. The kid that we were helping was out on the deck in his wheelchair with a blanket around him, and all the youth would just take turns holding his hand and being with him. And then at like 6 o'clock, the bus rolled off, we're done, came home to Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what happens to the kids that everyone says are worthless. And I don't think I could get adults to do that.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a powerful story. And it leads into, we had a comment that came in from Sharon that I'll read to you. She's with us now. She says, how incredibly dedicated and deeply knowledgeable and caring these people are. they are giving so much of themselves, seeing and taking care of physically and emotionally a community's need. We need more people with the same heart to care about and help in their endeavors. What a proud legacy. So that
Everything you hear. Don't believe everything you hear.
That leads into Kirsten, I know we were talking about the whole idea, in your piece, and the inspiration for writing your piece is really thinking about how, and certainly what's happened with the pandemic and COVID-19, it has us even more focused on this, although we were focused on it even before the pandemic made things that much more extreme. But how do we make our communities less vulnerable, more self-sufficient, and also healthier in the way, I think, Rick, that you've really been highlighting today, where the kind of maybe natural order of things, where young men are valued and they feel like there's a real place for them. There's a way for them to flourish. There's land that they can plant themselves in, and rain that will fall upon them and they will flourish. So you've succeeded in Hana, but for people who are watching wherever they are, whichever community they happen to be in, and they may be thinking to themselves, how do we accomplish something like this? What are the practical steps that we can take if we want to try and recreate something like this? What would you say to somebody like that? And who wants to take that? Should it be the grant writer, Kirsten? Did you have to answer this question a lot? Do you want to share with us your thoughts about how people can start to take the steps toward what you have successfully created there?
I think we're seeing everything now through this pandemic lens, right? Which has only magnified issues that are always there. How can we be, especially as island communities, more self-sufficient, less vulnerable, less dependent on outside resources for our survival, for our economy? But the basic needs that Makahana Ka'ike has helped and tried to develop in all its participants are needs that never go away: shelter, food, health, the importance of culture are with us always. And we're seeing everything through everything is a little exponentiated right now, but it's something that we should always be looking at within our communities. And as far as, I think Rick would have some good ideas on how maybe someone could adapt use the building program as a model for things that they could do within their own community that are realistic and doable. But I'm hoping that people who hear about what we've been doing also look at what are the resources within their own communities. How can they adapt it to their own needs? Because every community is different and its strengths are different. So what can we be an inspiration more than a blueprint?
Mm-hmm. We've gotten a couple more comments and a question. Here's a comment from Brian. We need this program expanded across Hawaii with DOE funding. 60 years ago, the last 2 years of high school could be finished at the trade school, community college, or workplace. So that's maybe that idea of kind of actually getting it into the system more, so that it becomes a part of the official curriculum. One of the things I was curious about, Rick, this is just sort of a practical question. What about the building materials themselves? How do you just drive, how does that work? Do you just go to Lowe's and Home Depot and Ace Hardware, and how do you pay for them? And can you just take us into that a little bit?
We've got a big flatbed truck, and I go with the kids at 1, 2 in the morning to big job sites that you won't know if they're making anything, and we harvest. No, that's our the wonderful world of foundations and county. We're very heavily supported in grants. We get a lot of donation, which is always great. We get tremendous amount of donation from all sorts, from building supply, from contractors, from people who've got materials left them in their house. But the bottom line is that Kirsten and Lipoa now write them into their grants, and we are able to buy what we need so it doesn't become an issue. And it's important that that is not what we're spending time on, scratching around and pulling nails out of used materials. That, there's good points to that and everything. But on the other hand, there's way more important ways to spend your time than dealing with that. We also want everything we build to be of the highest quality. So if someone wants to donate a truck full of junk, often, we don't take it because we want what we build to be an example of longevity, quality, and Hana is such a severe place that, if we build something 20 years ago, we want it looking good today and strong and that quality. So materials are just part of our budget in a big way. In the beginning, it was way more based on donation, but now it becomes part of a budget.
For any viewer who might have a question about that, what do you mean when you say Hana is such a severe place?
Severe as far as climate,
the
elements, the amount of rain we get, the amount of rot that's potential, the termite potential, the water damage potential. One of the things that we noticed earlier on when we started building for our kupuna little cottages is they could not be in their own house at 4 p.m. for 6 months of the year because it was so hot. Because of the way it was built and the orientation and the ventilation and the insulation. So we adapted to give them a place that, will be completely comfortable. AC is not a thing in Hana. Almost nobody has it. And so, how to build smart within our environment.
Okay. Okay. Here's a question that's come in, and maybe Lipoa, you can take this one. This is from Jacob. He says, ideally, what would be the next steps for a graduating senior of your program?
I think it really depends on what they wish to do. I mean, we've had graduating seniors who are on the college path, and so they're adamant about taking their skills to that level, whether vocationally or academically. If there's a student that wants to remain in Hana, which we have students that do, and they want to continue with us, they would then become a graduate apprentice or they would get the opportunity to become a graduate apprentice with us in their specific program. We've had students swap programs and work with multiple programs over their career, if you will, with us. And so it really depends on what they wish to do, and we kind of tailor it specific to them. We've had students, and we're kind of getting a little bit better, wanting to get a little bit better at this, is having them for a specific or more focused amount of time, knowing that they'll move on. And maybe, in 2 years, they'll be ready for college or a trade school. Or their own venture. That's something we really want to explore a little bit more, knowing that a lot of our students that come through our program, they want to continue to contribute to their community and be a part of their community. And so maybe creating a shorter pipeline through which they can acquire, more skills, continue their mentorship, and then eventually transition out.
Okay. Okay.
And a lot of kids do make their living. We're in touch in Hana. You don't lose touch with people. You're constantly in touch with them and their families. And there are students all over the place who have continued in carpentry or in solar or
Sure.
electric or whatever. If you look at the building crews in Hana now, basically we started 20 years ago. So most anyone under, 36, 38 years old did go through our program in some way or another and are now building either on their own or with others. So there's potential in, to make a living. You get a little leg up. And one other thing that we do that I love is when the kids work, they do get paid for their after school work. Um, and part of the pay is in tools, which they accumulate tool money. And then whenever they want something or a good sale comes on, they'll buy they'll leave school with thousands of dollars of very high quality tools. The manufacturers are very supportive. The tool companies give us great prices. So the kids are able to walk out with a to die for, you know, bag of tools that will either take them into work or just as important, maybe they're not doing that for work, but they know how to fix Tutu's roof and you know eventually they bust it out and they remember
Yeah,
how to do
that's like riding a bike. That is great. That is great
it.
that they
Yes,
have the tools.
all about what they do as a profession is, especially in Hana, people do a lot of different things. It's not, I'm gonna go be a lifetime lawyer or an eye doctor or whatever the case is. People, you know, they're multi-talented and they do many things.
Resourceful. Yeah, we have to. I mean, a lot of our services are elsewhere. And so, or maybe we can't afford them. And so, I mean, we have to learn how to do things ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, here is a question. This is from actually says hello from Nancy Redfeather, who was very involved in school gardens programs. So she's saying hello to all of you. And her question is, the Makahana Ka'ike program has grown out of the Hana Public High School. How did that happen? How can our local high schools take steps towards strengthening hands-on programs in both agriculture and the trades? So I know we've touched on that a little bit, but just looking very specifically at, let's say there are people, whether they're high school students, whether they're teachers, whether they're parents who are watching, who are out there right now and saying, this sounds like something I would like to see happen in my high school. What do they do?
Well, first, I think sorry, I just had one quick thought, quick plug. As our schools, across the country are going to be experiencing furloughs, I do think it's quite a top priority for all of us to advocate, and vote appropriately for education. It's quite telling the decisions that are being made that are continually and usually the first thing to go, besides environment, which is another telling issue, but is our educational system. And, if we want to continue to, call for these things and ask for these things in our local schools, especially here in Hawaii, that already lack so many resources, that's one of the first things that come to my mind, is ensuring that those that are in our government are really wanting to prioritize education and funding towards education.
I think also adding to that we cheat. We haven't had an unfair advantage. When we started 20 years ago, the state mandated a big boost in the construction trades, and they tried to get something going in all the mainstream high schools, and it didn't really fly because the culminating project was a birdhouse or a bench, because that was the resources that the school system was able to throw at this. And I say we cheated we were able to have a bigger purse. We had more money and we had more community support. So our administration, Nancy asked, how did we do it? Well, our administration put out a red carpet for us and they welcomed us in. It's not like that all over. They took chances with us, they took risks with us. So that was on a personal level. But I think that what we're looking at in the future is more partnerships with the community and school, and not leaving everything on the school, because the school is just it's so hard. It's so difficult just to balance what they have going. And I think that you need community, you need, retired carpenters or people, farmers, to step in and say, okay, I'm over being a contractor for rich people. I choose to, make less of a living and do things for the community and the kids. And those people coming in could make a much bigger difference, I think, than the school system is able to do.
Just as a practical matter, how do you see that coming to pass? I know that's a big question, but let's say there is that retired carpenter out there who says, I want to see something like this in my community. Like, how do you go from that impulse to where all of you are? I know that's a very long journey, but it sort of gets back to what we were talking about a little while ago about, the kind of the initial steps. Is there any sort of existing group that you feel is good for helping pull these ideas together so that they can actually manifest into something?
Well, you could do like I did and find an extremely beautiful Wahine who knows how to write grants and team up with her, and go that way. But other than that, it takes some step into the unknown. When I started, before I knew Kirsten, I paired with our PTSA at school as a nonprofit and started with them with them umbrelling our ideas. I don't think there's a go-to. The foundations in the state of Hawaii are amazing. Their support of good ideas and their wanting and being willing to take a risk at trying things. Um, there's organizations like OHA who are also in that same thing. If you come with a good idea, maybe they would stand behind you and get you started. Just as far as like building, we build, I'm a house builder, so I was able to do that. But on a lesser basis, in every single community in Hawaii, there are kupuna that need handicap access ramps, that need the ability to live at homes, to stay at home, um, that don't want to go into homes. And every high school should, you know, figure out the liability, figure out the lawyer stuff, and talk with the building department and figure out a way to collaborate with the public health nurse, get a list of people who need small kind help, and go out there and do it, and let the kids, even with a ramp or something like that, the hugs from auntie and uncle that the kids get at the end of the day, and the skills they learn, even at something as simple as that, that's a no-brainer, and that every school could be doing in their own neighborhoods.
Mhm.
So it's not impossible. It's just with schools now, budget is difficult, you know, budget is extra difficult now. And I think that, expertise is difficult too. So that's where you get the collaboration between community, foundation, government services and school, because I don't think school does it alone. I don't think you sit up on top and say, okay, school, you got to do this program. They're not going to, they'll have intention, but won't be able to pull it off.
Okay.
I think all this highlights the importance of relationships. Maybe that one carpenter who wants to do something in his community can't do it alone. But if he starts talking to people, other people with skills, school, who are the kids or who are the participants, it's when those relationships are formed that things start to fall into place.
Okay. Okay. And I know we don't have that much longer, but there is one thing, Rick, that you just mentioned that I just want to touch on, because I think viewers might be wondering about this. And that is, you mentioned something about the lawyer stuff, liability. And so is that just in terms of, people might be thinking, not that we don't have to go into that in depth, but like the whole issue of, like you mentioned, the 3-day house, right? Is there any issue? Has the Maui building department, is the county supportive? Do they say like, hey, great, or do they say like, well, this needs to be done? Like, is there any pilikia with other builders or?
Well, that's where Hana is special, because there's not. And it's a gray, line. I've talked with a lot of the building, higher uppers in the county, and they're all for it. The absolute legality is fairly gray. We try to do everything to code and above code. When I mention the lawyers, it's this thing that, if you built a ramp and Auntie falls on that ramp, are they going to close down your whole program? Or is society, are we going to figure out a way to say that they did everything right, they did it with intention, and this will not become, a 5 o'clock news hour lawsuit? I'm a big believer in intention and doing things right and doing for the right motive. And that's not always how our society is. So it's nothing bad on lawyers or anything. It just, we come from a legal system which has gone in a certain direction. And I think that people who want to help have to have a certain security that they're not going to get their house taken away or something like that. That's all I meant.
But it sounds like then when you build, you're well aware of what the codes are and everything's done to code. And so then there wouldn't be any issue. I mean, a building inspector from the county, let's say, would just come out, they would look at it, they would say, okay, this is to code, and they would sign off on it.
Somewhere in there.
Right.
Okay. The quality, the quality is code or above.
Right.
Everything is, the kids learn how to build quality. Sometimes, it's not possible to go in a certain direction, but the quality is never, there's never a reason for doing anything less than top quality.
Understood. Okay, well, and what?
To code.
And to code. So we're just over an hour now. So I want to, but I'd love to wrap it up again. Here we are coming to the close of 2020, at least with the Civil Beat Ideas Live program. And I'd love it if each one of you would share kind of a favorite moment, either a favorite moment or a favorite story, a favorite image, something that has deep meaning for you personally when you think through all of the different experiences and things that you have witnessed over the course of your involvement with the program.
I'd like to start.
Thanks, Kirsten.
I think one of the most powerful testaments to the work that we tried so hard to do over so many years is sitting in this other box right here that we're looking at, that we were able to literally empower the youth of our community to take this torch and continue it on, to keep it alive, to keep that flame burning, and also to direct and guide that flame in the way that they feel is most appropriate in this time. So that was kind of always a dream. And for some years, it seemed like maybe a pipe dream. And so to see that the next generation of students, people who were once students, are now Makahana Kaike's leaders is so potent and so telling that the work that we tried to do was successful.
Thank you.
Rick, you want to go next?
I'll because mine could be a half an hour. Lipoa.
Oh, when I think, the other side of that is being able to create opportunities to come home to, not only for myself, but our Mahele Farm program manager was also a student of Makahana Kaike who went away and came back and has, been able to have a career back home in his hometown, in our hometown. The same with our building program manager, that took Rick's place in the building program, and is now, the one that's leading the projects and leading the classes with our students. He too was able to create a career. And so that is definitely, a beautiful part of this legacy, is that opportunity to have job, not just a job, but really a career where we grew up and where we want to be. So, I guess that's, a nice reflection for me as this year, comes to an end, the first in my formal position here. But, there's, in addition to that, I feel like one of the highlights is through the pandemic, we did have to push or phase out of our work with students. And actually that provided space and time for us to focus on our employees and on our staff, from graduate apprentice level, which is 18, 19 years old, to, our graduate teachers, and as well as our program leads. And what that allowed us to do was especially during the time where we were all on lockdown, they were empowered to work on projects at home. And I think that was a really, it's a non-traditional, non-conventional thing to do, is to pay your employees to do things for themselves. But it was also, such an empowering thing to feel and, see in the form of pictures and photos, is, we have this wealth of knowledge and expertise in our organization. However, we're not always the ones that are able to our houses may still be falling down, or, we're not planting gardens at home, but we're doing that for others. And so that was a really special time. Our staff were able to plant gardens and garden with their kids, and, fix the leak in their roof, or, and have these different projects and really utilize their skills for themselves and their ohana a little bit more directly. And so that was being able to be a part of that, and be home to be a part of that is truly special. So thank you, Rick, and thank you, Kirsten, for creating this legacy for us.
Rick, is there anything you want to add?
Our second year in existence, Thanksgiving coming up. One of our boys, his family house, single mother of 6, burnt to the ground. It was a shack. And the next Monday morning, the week of Thanksgiving, the kids came to school. We were building on campus, and all the talk was about his house burning down, Brada's house. And one of the kids saying, "Hey, we could build Brada a house." yeah, we could build brother a house. And I said, BS, you couldn't build brother a house. And they said, yeah, we could. So we dropped our belts, went to the classroom. The kids designed a house and they said, okay, let's order. I said, I don't have any money. You know, there's no budget for this. So they got on the phones, they called up the suppliers, our local suppliers. That night, we had 90% of the materials donated for the house. And as the week progressed, we got bulldozers to come in and grade the area, um, ready for it. Thanksgiving came Friday morning, 7 o'clock. 50 people, half of them students, showed up at the site. It was raining. And we started tripping each over. There were builders, there were every, every sort of people. By lunchtime, there were 3 tents set up side by side, full of food. Everyone took turns eating, building. The rain kept coming the next day, building, nothing but rain. People would run t-shirts back and forth to the hotel to dry them out, bring fresh t-shirts for us, dusk till dawn. Sunday night, um, one of our kupuna came, blessed the house. The roof was on. The house was livable. Everything except paint because we couldn't paint in the rain. But this was the magic of the first kids saying, we could do this.
Mhm.
We can build a house for Brada. And then watching the community show up. And as every day passed, it just got crazier and crazier. More people, more help, more food. And watching this thing was like a fairy tale to me. It, it restarted my whole philosophy on, what the nonprofit could do and where its place might be, what the potential is.
Yeah. Well, that's a great note to end it on. You see a need and you say, okay, we can do it. It's so affirming. And here's we have a last comment from Jacob. Regenerative entrepreneurship will be the answer to our future. This program is the breeding ground for these future leaders. Thank you all for your hard work. So I would definitely second that. And I'm sure everyone who's been with us here today watching would as well. So mahalo nui loa. And how nice just to hear stories from Hana. What's the weather like there today? Is it raining?
Off and
Not
on.
at the moment.
Yeah, not at the moment.
Not at the moment. All right. Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I guess one final question. If our viewers want to learn more, is there a website that they can go to where they can learn more?
Yes. Go visit hanabuild.org and take a look. And we should have our email there if you wanted to contact us regarding it.
That's perfect. That's perfect. All right. Well, again, thank all three of you so much. And Kirsten, all the way back when I contacted you a couple of months ago about writing the piece, and you were so gracious. So thank you too for writing the piece for the readers as well. So for all of the viewers out there, I just want to say, I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season, and we will be back with new shows in the new year. We'll be looking at housing, we'll be looking at energy, we'll be looking at police reform, we'll be looking at farming, we'll be looking at all kinds of things. And maybe in 2021, who knows, if you guys want, if it seems like there's a reason to do it, we can do a follow-up show and kind of see what's happening. Maybe there will be other organizations in other parts of the islands who are following your lead. But really just wishing the best for everyone moving into 2021. Thank you for joining us. Aloha.
Aloha.